Hey everybody, Dr. Jensen with CCJ 3701 Research Methods in Criminology. It's time to start pulling your results together and running your analyses and writing that section of your paper. So this is to me, the fun part where you actually get the answer to your question and you get to write up all the stuff you found out from SPSS. And it's actually not a lot of writing. This is the whole results section. Boop, that's it. It's like 2 pages, maybe a little more, and that's really all it is. So it's not a lot of writing to do. But this writing has a lot of preparation to it. I'm going to talk you through how to do that and make sure you know what you need to run in order to create this section of your paper. Okay? So first of all, every results section, whether you're running a linear regression or a logistic or no matter what kind of data you have, you're going to have a bivariate test and you're going to have a multivariate test. So right here, you can see I have a table that shows a correlation. Okay? This is the bivariate test. And it shows the results of that test. Then there's a little baby paragraph right here that are just a couple sentences that tell me what the test means. And that's it. Then the next section here is a table of my regression test, my multivariate test. Okay? And I have all the results from SPSS. And then over here on the other page, I just have a few paragraphs describing what all of that actually means in English. That's it. So that's your whole results section you're going to turn in. So first you have a bivariate test, a little paragraph about results, a multivariate test, a few paragraphs of results, you're done. That's it. Okay? So let's talk through how to get ready to do this. At this point in the semester, you need to have your variables chosen for your topic. You need to make decisions on whether or not things need to be recoded, or if you need to create scales or summations, and all of that preparation needs to be done ahead of time. Okay, if you're confused as to whether or not you need to recode or build a scale or summation, please feel free to consult me or the teaching assistant. We'd be happy to work with you on that so that way you don't make a mistake. Okay, it starts to become kind of obvious if it needs to be recoded or scaled or summed. Just kind of look at what you have and think about the things we've been doing over the last few weeks and see if it fits that pattern that we've done. Okay, but again, if you're not sure, reach out via email or phone and we can work through it together. Okay? So all of that preparation is done. Again, realize not everything needs to be recoded, not everything needs to be summed or scaled. Oftentimes you have a variable that's ready to go out of the box, and you don't have to make any changes to it. It's fine as is, and you can just put it right into your equation. So you also have that option as well, but you want to make sure you go through everything first and make decisions about it. The other thing you need to do is, as you make those changes, if you make any changes, you need to report on the changes you've made in your methods section. So just like we do in labs, when you write down all the ways you recoded something and all the little pieces and changes that you did from the old values to the new values, or some of the steps we did when we built the scale and how we organized it, all of those things go in your methods section, underneath your variables. Okay? So you tell the reader, this is my variable, this is how it was originally, these are changes I made to it, and you just describe it in plain words. I had values of 0, I changed those to 1, I had values of 2, I changed those to 0, and then I created a variable that looked like this. And that's it, okay? So again, don't leave out that description of how you change the variable because that's a critical part of your method section. If you don't change the variable at all, you can just write up how it's originally coded and you're fine. So that is something that's a preliminary step that needs to be done before you just jump right into results. So once you have all your variables organized and coded and worked out, then you get to start running statistics. So for those of you that have an interval-dependent variable, meaning it's a quantity, right? Interval or ratio. It's some kind of numerical variable that I can quantify. It's a how much or how many style variable. Maybe it's dollars. Maybe it's years on a sentence. Maybe it is how many delinquent acts you've done, how many drugs you've taken. It might be points on a scale that represent how strong my relationship is to my spouse or my parent, any number of things I can quantify, okay? It can be scales, all kinds of stuff. If you have a variable like that is your outcome variable or your dependent variable, then you're going to be running linear regression for sure, okay? We had some videos that talked about that last week. So you're going to run linear regression, and we'll talk through that in a moment. But the other thing you're going to do is you need to choose a bivariate technique that fits the measurement level of your independent and dependent variable. So now that you know you have a dependent variable that's interval, you need to look and see what your independent variable is, okay? Because there's 3 bivariate tests you could run. You could run a correlation, an ANOVA, or a t-test, okay? You're going to just do one. You're not going to run all 3, just one, and it all comes down to how the independent variable is measured. So if you have an independent variable that's a category, maybe groups of people or certain statuses or something like that, then you're either going to run the t-test or the ANOVA, okay? How do I know which one to run? The t-test or ANOVA test is what we call an analysis of variance or a comparison of the means. So for each of those groups inside that independent variable, they're each going to have a mean score or a mean average, right? Some kind of mean outcome on the dependent variable of some average of the quantity that your dependent variable is measuring, okay? So you want to compare those means and how they work group to group. If you only have 2 categories on your nominal variable that's an independent variable, then you run the t-test, okay? If you have 3 or more categories on that independent variable, then you run the ANOVA, okay? It'll be really obvious to me if you know what you're doing, depending on what you choose to run, okay? So just for reminders, if you go into SPSS, this is where those tests live. We did these in kind of weeks 6 and 7. This is where we started to talk about these statistics. So if you need to go revisit how to interpret them or how to run them, you may want to go back to those weeks as a reminder. So we go to Analyze, compare the means, and for the t-test, you run the independent samples t-test. For the ANOVA test, you run the one-way ANOVA. Okay, so that's where those tests live. Remember, when you run the t-test, you get a little menu that looks like this. The test variable is actually the dependent variable. That's what you put in, and maybe it's your scale or your quantity variable, whatever your outcome variable is. For your grouping variable down here, you put in the independent variable, okay? So I'm just going to pop a variable in here to show you. Once you've put your independent variable in, it says define the groups. Click on define the groups, and you have to tell SPSS what those 2 categories are. They're either 1 or 2 or 1 or 0 or whatever they are, okay? You just put those groups in, 1, 0, and hit continue, and then you're done. And then you can click OK and run the t-test. And that's it. It will provide you a list of the means of those groups, and it'll also give you a t-statistic and a statistically significant level, or not, okay? So then you got to go back and interpret what that means and tell me the results of the test. For the ANOVA test, again, you go to Analyze, compare the means, one-way ANOVA, here's the menu for that. Dependent list, you actually put the dependent variable there. The factor list is where the independent variable goes, okay? Now, one thing you have to do is click on Options and add descriptive statistics for the ANOVA test. For some dumb reason, it's not a default to show you the means of all the groups you're going to be analyzing. You want to see those so you can write about them, okay? So ask for descriptive statistics in that little checkbox, click Continue, and then run your test. Okay, same thing. You'll get all the means, you'll get an F statistic in the ANOVA, and you'll get whether or not it's statistically significant. Okay, so that's how you run those 2 tests. And again, you have to really understand how your 2 variables work and whether they fit the requirements of the test. Okay, now then, what if you have an independent variable that's interval and you have a dependent variable that's interval? You have 2 scales that are predicting each other or something like that in your topic. That's easy. That's a correlation. So if you go to Analyze and then Correlate and then Bivariate, okay, this is where you put your 2 variables in here, okay? All these defaults are perfectly fine. You just stack them here in the menu. You run your correlation and you'll get that little correlation matrix that we talked about again in weeks 6 and 7. You'll get results and a significant level and things like that, okay? So that's how you run the correlation. So again, if your dependent variable is interval, you're going to run one of those 3 bivariates. ANOVA, t-test, correlation. One of those 3. Don't run all 3, just one. Okay, let's look at what those results could look like. So in here, I'm going to zoom in quite a bit. You're going to have a table. This is actually for a correlation. But you have a table, and it says, here's my variables. This one's parental supervision scale, trying to see if it impacts delinquency. So all they put inside the table is here they put the correlation coefficient. It's actually negative. And then they put little stars next to it indicating whether or not it is significant. Okay, it's a pretty simple table to build. You just have to kind of populate these pieces up here to put your variable names inside them, stick your little R value in there, put stars next to it if it's significant. If it is not significant, you don't put stars next to it. Then there's just a simple write-up about what it means. In Table 3, the negative correlation between parental supervision and delinquency is statistically significant at this level. This means that as parental supervision decreases, a child's delinquency increases. And then that's pretty much all you can say with the correlation. There's not much more. It's just kind of a simple, are these two things related? Yes. So then you kind of end with further multivariate analyses where explore this relationship with additional variables. Then you jump into a regression. Here's your regression table. We're going to talk about this in a separate video so you know how to populate it and all the pieces to put inside it. Then underneath there, you start writing kind of sentence by sentence and paragraph by paragraph what all the little pieces mean, presenting the statistical and substantive results underneath. Okay? So that's essentially how that comes together. So, when you present your statistical information in a table, let's go through that for just a moment. This table looks a little daunting. You go, oh, I don't know if I can build this. Again, I have templates for you to use. It's not hard. And I'll have a separate, very short video to show you how to put pieces in here to understand them. Okay? So you can see there's a list of variables. You have models in here. These are all the pieces of SPSS output that comes out of a linear regression. Remember, with linear regression, you have a dependent variable that's interval, and then your independent variables can really be anything. They can be nominal, ordinal, interval. They can be measured in any way you want. We interpret them a little different depending on how they're measured, but they can be measured in any which way. Okay? So we list them all here. They're all predicting the same thing, juvenile delinquency, up here in the title. And then inside the table, you actually put the little B coefficients inside here, positive or negative. I always use 2 decimal places as a rule of thumb. You can use 3 if you want. Some people like to do that just to keep these little numbers even, okay? And then you put stars next to the ones that are significant. And you have a little thing down here, a little subtext under the table that tells you how many stars everything gets, okay? You have a row of constants. Those are the y-intercepts for all those little slopes and lines you're graphing between the 2 variables. Here's your r squared, okay? And you also have, right here, that's r squared. And then here's the n, okay, the number of cases you're doing. Let me show you one other thing that you need to know. When you look at a regression, so let's show you how to run one. Analyze, regression, linear, okay? Remember, you put your dependent variable here, your independent variable here. You can also stack it with other control variables in here, because that's all a control variable is. It's just another independent variable, okay? You start putting stuff in there, la la la, you put all your stuff in. One other thing to do is you go to statistics and you can ask for descriptives, okay? It's right here in the middle. Descriptives will tell you how many cases you're analyzing and how big your sample size is, okay? So that way you can report that little n in your table. That's one thing I probably didn't show you quite yet. So if you go to statistics, ask for descriptives, it'll show you kind of a case summary of how many cases you have, how many people are getting analyzed. That's it. When you're done, just hit continue, and then you can run your linear regression. Okay? So, again, you report everything in a table, and this is kind of my advice to you. I tell people, build your table first, run your analyses in SPSS, stick all your numbers in your table, and then put SPSS away, clear all the output. You've already populated your table, you have everything, and then use your built table to make interpretations. So you have everything you need in one place. You're not scrolling around forever on SPSS output. You have it all here. It's all ready to go. And then you can start working on some sentences and paragraphs about the pieces and what they mean. Another little tip is I kind of just go column by column. I start with one variable, and then I go to the next set of variables, these 2, and then I go to the next set of variables. So I kind of just look at one column at a time. Okay, and I write a little paragraph about this one, a little paragraph about this one, and a paragraph about this one, and then I'm done. Okay? So that's a little bit of an easier strategy to go about writing out your linear regression results. But again, you'll have another video that shows you the pieces of the table in more detail and how the results start to look in more detail as well. It would also help to kind of read some of the language in here so you get accustomed to how we describe things in SPSS and in plain English. Good luck, and let me know if you have questions.